Hey, what's up, Chris?
Hey, what's up, Wythe?
Hey, we're here at 20-Sided Store, and we're very excited to talk a little about Danse Macabre Medieval Horror Role-Playing.
That's right.
The new game from Stillfleet Studio by Christopher Pickett.
Yeah. I'm the author and lead illustrator of Danse Macabre Medieval Horror Role-Playing. I don't really know what else to say there, but yeah, that's great.
So, Chris,
Yeah.
what is Danse Macabre Medieval Horror Role-Playing?
Danse Macabre is a TTRPG kind of in the OSR tradition that mixes fast, brutal combat with real-world medieval history. And, you know, it's written so that you don't have to be like a history professor or an
Right.
expert or even an armchair medievalist to really get into the game. It's got super intuitive rule system based off of the Grit System, which is our flagship system at Stillfleet Studio. And yeah, I mean, I think the narrative is intriguing enough to grab anybody, even if you're not a history head, unfortunately, like myself.
Awesome. So, if you could pitch it in just a couple words, what's the world of Danse Macabre Medieval Horror Role-Playing? So is this like if someone has played Dungeons and Dragons or Shadow Dark or Merkborg, how does it sort of compare in terms of the experience, the world? What's it feel like?
Yeah, I mean, it feels, I think, dark and dire is how I would put it. In the game, whenever somebody dies, they're resurrected within a few hours. They come back with these body horrific mutations known as maleficia. And if you die too many times, you lose your humanity and you become what's known in the game as a demoniac. So the threat of losing your reason, losing yourself is kind of always ever present. It's very dire straits, and it's a kind of gross, gloomy take on the world.
So you could become an enemy, basically.
You can,
Also, you do have cool powers, and they're body horror, mutation powers, or things you've learned as like a skill.
Right.
Like the really weird powers are body horror. So there's no magic, right?
Right, yeah, there's no magic in the game, so that's a big difference between Danse Macabre and a lot of other fantasy role-playing games, is that there, you know, like everybody always says, oh, a wizard did it. That doesn't exist in Danse Macabre. There's no, altering reality. It's just that, bad things are happening around you and to you. And it's kind of up to you to use your skill and your cunning to survive.
Yeah, a little more gritty, a little more real, but really wild. When we say demoniacs, I mean sort of mutant undead, and this gets into Cronenbergian territory and beyond. It's really almost, I think, inspired by some like manga and anime and just wild, like Berserk, that kind of look at horrific, dark fantasy. And it's almost like a sort of zombie apocalypse vibe, but in a very historically real place. So I think as a player, it feels very real. And as a GM, it's very fun because I'm like, oh, these normal NPCs, 99% of them are like peasants who are like, I don't want to die in sort of the mutant zombie apocalypse, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, the game takes direct inspiration from all kind of zombie media, as well as, like you said, Berserk is a huge inspiration both on the setting and also the art that's included in the game by myself, Tony Grasso, and Ethan Guldini. It's all very detailed, very visceral, very gross art. That is directly inspired by Kentaro Miura's Berserk or like the horror works of Junji Ito. I mean, it's meant to have tooth and to feel like a real lived-in place, as opposed to kind of your traditional Western fantasy where, like, there's dragons everywhere, anything can happen, but also magic is rampant.
Right.
Not the case here.
A Lich King, whereas this is a little bit different.
So Chris, tell me about the setting of the game. In the Danse Macabre Medieval Horror Role-Playing rulebook, we're assuming that the Pilgrims are in Constantinople, Queen of Cities. There's also a companion book, Guide to the Abandoned World. We have lots of other settings. But the base rules, the whole book is sort of focused on this big city between two continents in the height of medieval times. Why Constantinople?
I mean, there's a couple of reasons that I decided to go with Constantinople. One is that it's, just frankly different than a lot of the fantasy games that you see out there that have this kind of like mishmash amalgam of like medieval and Renaissance France, Germany, and England that kind of make up the setting as these broadly kind of Western European thing. And, Constantinople itself at the time was incredibly diverse, crossroad of a lot of different cultures. There's a lot of trade going on. And so that's something that we really wanted to tap into, something that feels familiar, but also like a little bit different for an American, for a Western audience in general. And then, the other part of it is that the narrative of Danse Macabre is highly inspired by just zombie apocalypse media, right? And what better place to hole up and stay safe from ravening hordes of demoniac zombies outside the gates than one of the most fortified cities of the entire medieval world. You got walls on walls on walls. It's kind of perfect as a perfect place to have a bottle episode, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, and it's cool how you have it where the sort of the Ottomans are coming in, and instead of having taken over because of this apocalypse, the abandonment of death, they kind of make a new way of ruling this whole area with the Byzantines, who were really on their way out. But they're sort of both revived in a way, and they sort of split everything, and now it's called the diarchy. So they have
that's right.
two thrones, two different sets of law, but they have sort of overlapping jurisdictions. They're hiring stuff out with the Venetians, with the merchants. So it sort of is an interesting story, like any good zombie tale, of how people soldier on, humans forge new ways of being, new communities. And I think that the core rule book not only has great rules, and you can set it anywhere, and we have, but it works really well just to pick it up and set it in Constantinople. It offers a lot of rich kind of quests and character types. So I think it's fun. It's deeply researched. But again, I think it's worth emphasizing, you do not have to know history, right?
No,
you have to know anything.
You don't. I mean, we have entire sections of the book that are dedicated, call outs and things like that are dedicated to historical facts. So if that's something that you are interested in, we have things that, point to real world history in the book. There's some, reading rainbow learning moments that I've included in the writing. But it doesn't focus on like I said, being an expert. You don't have to know anything about medieval history to kind of jump into the setting. I think having kind of the unique politics of the diarchy makes it something that's easy for us to understand in a lot of ways. I mean, it's directly inspired by Cold War Berlin.
Sure.
And in particular, I mean, if you want to do a deep dive, the movie Possession is a huge inspiration on Danse Macabre. It's got body horror, mutations, and also spycraft between the walls of Berlin.
We love that.
Yeah.
One last thing I'll say on the setting is that because you're pilgrims who've been accused of a crime, and you're answering to essentially the choirs of a church or the ulema, so again, regardless of faith, you're sort of doing missions for the church to pay off your debts to society. It's kind of cool in that it plays, and I've GM'd it now a few times, it plays like kind of a spy-themed game in a way, even though it's very much a medieval, low fantasy, low power zombie apocalypse, but in the year 1390, it's also like kind of a spy story, which I really love. I love that you can lean into that. You also can run it as more of a wilderness crawl. You'll find relics, bring them back. If you find enough, great, you're forgiven. It works both ways, and it's very easy to jam. I didn't find it hard. You don't have to know a lot. I did find it useful to randomly just Wikipedia facts and just decide, like, okay, these guys, the bad guys all make cheese. That's like how they're paying the bills as the evil cult. And that worked. That ended up being kind of a funny, plot point that people ran with. So I think it works really well. Again, I think it's a very well-designed game. So I cannot wait to publish this. Chris, how can people find out about, learn more, get ready for Danse Macabre, big into horror roleplay?
I think the first thing you should do, the easiest thing you should do, is head to stillfleet.com/danseks. That's dance with an S, so DANSEKS. That'll take you directly to the Kickstarter pre-launch page, so you can follow along there. You can also, go to stillfleet.com, sign up for our mailing list, where you'll get updates, previews, and maybe a little bit more. We'll see what comes down the pipeline. But then otherwise, follow along and back the Kickstarter coming out Tuesday, October 7th.
Yep. And you can find us everywhere on social at Stillfleet. And the Kickstarter is going to have the rule book, the Guide to the Abandoned World, and the book I'm working on that's a campaign setting in Paris. It's kind of a dungeon, so it gives you more flavor, stuff to do as a GM that's a little bit different from sort of wilderness. And there's also going to be a reliquary zine. So again, more into GMs with tons and tons of relics of quintessence. So a lot of great history broken up into very useful little bits of game, all beautiful A5 books illustrated by Christopher Pickett. That's the lead, with some work by Ethan Boldini and Anthony Grasso, and all designed by Anthony Grasso. Thank you so much, Christopher Pickett, for your time.
Thank you, Wythe Marschall, for your time.
Come on, get out of here. Find us at Stillfleet. Thanks.